What's going on, my babies? Welcome back to another episode of The Spiritual Word. As always, I apologize for any noises in the background in advance and anything of that nature. And before I start these, I like to start these off with a disclaimer by stating that these are for entertainment purposes only. Always do your own research to come to your own conclusions, to have your answers, to make your own decisions, and I believe in your ability to do so and to be your own person. And another disclaimer by stating that I apologize for any noises in the background in advance and anything of that nature. I think I said that twice, I'm not sure. But, anyways, if you're new, thanks for tuning in and tapping in. This is a spiritual word. I have an audio version of the podcast anywhere you could find podcasts, and I have a video version of the podcast on YouTube. They're both named The Spiritual Word. I'm your host, Jackie. I upload Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, or at least I try to, every single week, except for the last week of every month. That's my break week. I call you guys my babies because I find that to be a very endearing term, and I mainly talk about psychology, spirituality, self-help, science, and philosophy. If those are things that you're interested in, then I recommend subbing or following whatever platform you're finding me on. And if you go to my Instagram, which I will have in the description of both of these, both the video and the audio version, if you go to my Instagram, it has my link tree, so you can find all of my socials on that if you're interested in that. And I also have don't know what that was, but I also have that totally ruined my train of thought. I also have a Discord for this podcast, and that's going to be in a link tree. So, my returning babies, you know that we're reading Start Where You Are by Pema Chodron, and I read 10, 11, and 12 yesterday, which I want to get into just because I feel like I went a little bit too fast just to try to get those done. So right now I want to talk about what those mean to me. Obviously, it's going to mean something different to you, but this is what it means to me. So we're going to go backwards, and we're going to go from 12. The empty boat. So I'm going to read the first little tiny section, or like the first paragraph. I had an interview with someone who had said she couldn't meditate. It was impossible because she had real life problems. In meditation, we're trying to bring home a very supportive message that real life problems are material for waking up, but not the reason to stop trying. This is news that you can use. That's a bar. Anyways, so, and I'm gonna read the last paragraph of the same chapter. This is a classic story of our whole life situation. For there are a lot of empty boats that we're always screaming at and shaking our fists at. Instead, we could stop and stop our minds. We can let them stop our minds. Even if they only stop our mind for 1 second. We can rest in that little gap. When the storyline starts, we can do the Toglin practice for exchanging ourselves for others in the way that everything has potential to meet. Everything we meet has potential to cultivate compassion and reconnect us with spaciousness, open quality of our minds. So, chapter 12 for me, the empty boat, that whole, I guess, idea, my interpretation of this specific idea of empty boat is basically trying to get you to understand that everything is material for you to be awakened, or for you to be in this state, which people like to call enlightenment, right? Which enlightenment, I don't know if you can actually fully, I'm not going to say enlightenment because I don't know what enlightenment really, really means. But obviously being awake means being open to the compassion and the ultimate heart space that you can actually be at within your own version of your own reality. And the empty boat thing, when I read it, to me it sounded like we get mad for literally no reason. We get frustrated for literally no reason. The things that we have, there's obviously a reason in why we have our expressions, right? Like, obviously I have reasons why I get frustrated. You have reasons why you get frustrated. There's still real life situations happening all around you all the time, simultaneously, as you coexist. And the empty boat is really getting you to recognize that you're just experiencing a moment in time. That's it. You're not here to be friends with this moment in time. You're not here to hate this moment in time. You're here to experience the moment in time, although it might not be something that you want to be experiencing. And it's about when those moments arise, realizing that those moments are there. Like, I took this into an example of, um, oh, my light. Sorry. So I took this into an example of when I play my video games, I get really frustrated because if I'm not getting help from my teammates, then it's basically like I don't have teammates. And I think that that's an extremely frustrating situation to be in, although it's not really that bad, you know? And those are my reasons, although your reasons might be extremely huge, right? Like you could say that the things that are going on, like the war, famine, suffering that people experience on a day to day, maybe that's your reasons, right? Those are huge reasons and they're real reasons, just like my reasons, although they're tiny, they're real. And it's basically saying that the bigger, the smaller they are, both of them, they exist here and now. But once it's all said and done, the storyline, once you back away from the storyline, which kind of for me, it means death. Like, as soon as I die, these problems are not going to be real to me anymore. Although, that could be a very steep slope if you think about it. And it can make you very, it could make it seem like it's not a problem, even if those problems are real to you. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what I'm trying to get at. I'm basically saying that the empty boat means that, sometimes you get mad at circumstances in your life because you're so caught up in the storyline. And going back to, let's see, going back to 11, let's see. 11 is just a practice in which you can use to overcome resistance, and resistance comes in many shapes and forms, which is why it's a process for doing that thing. And also, I think I'm going to double upload today because I want to do this and then on top of that, read the next three paragraphs, pages, chapters. Anyways, so number 11 is just a process in which you can overcome resistance. And this is the thing that I see the most in everyday, like my everyday situations. And obviously, I myself have had this happen to me personally, which is why I think it happens all the time and why I see it all the time, because I myself am going through these processes. And so number 11 is literally talking about how to overcome the things that you think you can't overcome because you think you can't. And it's as simple as you can overcome it as just here's the process to do that. And then number 10, let me go back to number 10. Cutting through the solidity of thoughts. So phenomenon itself is consisted of thoughts and energy. And so when you're cutting through the solidity, you kind of just remind yourself, like, this is my process of this. You kind of just remind yourself that, like, this is a dream and you're in control of this dream. So just be in the dream and experience the dream. And kind of recognize that behind the storyline, it's just a dream. And those are like my really short, sweet, simple answers to, or like my takes, which are not gonna be aligned with everybody's takes. So now I'm gonna read chapter 13 and 14. I was gonna do 14 and 15, or 13, 14, 15, but I don't know if I'm gonna have time for that just because the way that I read is very choppy. So, number 13, teachings for life and death. The 5 strengths are subject to 2 slogans. The practice, the 5 strengths, the condensed heart instruction, the Mahayana instruction for ejection of consciousness at death. And the 5 strengths is how you conduct yourself is important. The underlying point of our study and the practice is that the happiness we seek is here to connect with at any time. This is why I'm only reading 2 chapters, because like I'm already fumbling, which is not a bad thing. I'm getting better at reading every day, but still kind of bothers me. But we use this as material, you know what I mean? So anyways, I'm gonna reread that because like I really didn't understand that. So the underlying point of all our study and practice is that the happiness that we seek to connect to is here to connect with at any time. The happiness that we seek is our birthright. To discover it, all we need to do is be a little bit more gentle with ourselves, a little bit more compassionate towards others and our universe. The happiness we seek cannot be found through grasping or trying to hold on to things. It cannot be found through getting serious or uptight about wanting things to go in the direction we think it will bring us happiness. We are taking hold of the wrong end of the stick. The point is that happiness we seek is already here, and it will be found through relaxing and letting go rather than struggle. Does that mean that you can sleep all day? Does it mean that you can do nothing you need to do? The answer is no. There seems to be something that we have to do. These slogans tell us the practices, the 5 strengths: strong determination, familiarization, the seed of virtue, reproach, and aspiration. The 5 strengths are 5 sources of inspiration to trust. That we've got all we need in the palm of our hands. I'm gonna turn this up. These are the hard instructions of how to live and how to die. Last year, I spent some time with 2 people who were dying, Jack and Jill, who were both old friends. They had very different relationships with their deaths. They each had the privilege of knowing quite a few months in advance that they were going to die, which is a great gift. Both of them began to fade away. When things began to slip on Jack, his body stopped working for him as well. He got angry at the beginning, but then started to shift. He became more relaxed, and it became clear that everything was dissolving and slipping away. He had been seeming to get happier and happier. It felt as if he were letting go of all the things that he kept separate from all his basic goodness and letting it go. He said things like, "There's nothing to do, there's nothing to want," and he would start to laugh. Day by day, he wasted away more. But that was not the fundamental problem. This dissolving was very liberating for him. The external situation was the same for Jill, but she got scared. She began to struggle through the whole process. Her body started to waste away where there was less to hold on to. She became more grim, more terrified, clenching her teeth and her hands. She was facing the vast abyss and was going to be pushed over into it. She was screaming in terror, "No, no, no. I understood why I practice. We can discover the process of letting go and relaxing during our lifetime. In fact, that's the way to live. Stop struggling against the fact that things are slipping through your fingers. Stop struggling against the fact that knowing that nothing's solid. And begin with the things that don't last, knowing it can give us a lot of space and a lot of room if we relax with it instead of screaming and struggling against it. The 5 strengths are instructions on how to live and how to die. Actually, there's no difference. The same good advice applies to both, because if you know how to die, then you know how to live. And if you know how to live, then you'll know how to die. Suzuki Roshi said, "Just be willing to die over and over again. As each breath goes out, let it be the end of the moment and the birth of something new." All those thoughts they just come as they come. Hold on. All those thoughts as they come, just see them and let them go. The whole storyline die. Let the space of something new arise. The 5 strengths address how to give up all the time, to grasp what's ungraspable, and to actually relax into the space that there is. And when you find, and what then will you find? Maybe that's the point. We're not afraid to find out. Strong determination. The first strength is strong determination. Rather than some kind of dodged pushing through, strong determination involves connection with joy, relaxing, and trust. It's determination to use everyday It's determination to use everyday challenge. Sorry. It's determination to use every challenge you meet with an opportunity to open your heart and soften. Determination to not withdraw. One simple way to develop this strength is to develop a heart. Develop. Jesus, why am I buffering today? Develop a strong heart, spiritual appetite. To do this, some kind of playful quality is needed. When you wake up in the morning, say, I wonder what's going to happen today. This may be the day that I die. This may be the day that I understand what all those teachings were about. The Native Americans, before they went into battle, they would say, today is a good day to die. You could say, today is a good day to live. Strong determination gives you the vehicle you need to find out for yourself that that you have everything it takes, and that the fundamental happiness is right here, waiting. Strong determination does not shut out anything of their heart, and it does not close up and takes that sense of humor and appetite for an enlightenment. Familiarization. The next strength is familiarization. Familiarization means what familiarization means is that the Dharma no longer feels foreign, for you become dharmic. Hold on. Where was I? Your first thoughts become dharmic when you realize that all the teachings are about yourself and you're here to study. Dharma isn't a philosophy. Dharma is a good recipe for how to cook yourself, how to soften your hardest, toughest pieces of meat. Dharma is a good instruction for how to stop cheating yourself, how to stop robbing yourself, how to find out who you really are, and not limiting the sense I'm gonna get, but through developing wakefulness of your habits, your way of perceiving everything. We talk about enlightenment as this big accomplishment. Basically, it has to do with relaxing and finding out what you already have. The enlightenment. Enlightened you might be slightly different from you. From the one you're familiar with. But it has hair growing out of its head and still has taste buds, and it gets a flu shot and snot comes out of its nose. Enlightenment, however, you might experience yourself in slightly less catastrophic way. Maybe a completely non-catastrophic way. Familiarization means that you don't have to search any further, and you know it. It's the pleasantness of the presentness in a very discursive thought. Thoughts you're having now and all the emotions that you're coursing through you, that's all in there somehow. The seed of virtue. The third strength is the seed of virtue. In effect, is Buddha nature, or basic goodness. It's like swimming in a pool with no sides. You're swimming forever. In fact, you're the one that made the water. You're made out of the water. Buddha nature is the heart transplant that you get from elsewhere. It isn't as if you're trying to teach a tree how to talk, as Rinpoche once said. It's something that can be awakened, or you might say relax into. Let yourself fall apart into wakefulness. The strength comes from the fact that the seed is already there. The warmth and moisture it sprouts becomes visible above ground. You find yourself looking like a daffodil, or feeling like one anyway. The practice is about softening and relaxing, but it's also about precision and seeing clearly. No one applies searching. No one, none of that implies searching. Searching for happiness prevents us from ever finding it. The fourth strength is called reproach. This one requires talking to yourself. Ego, you've done nothing but cause me problems for ages. Give me a break, I'm not buying it anymore. Try it in the shower. You know yourself. You should talk to yourself all the time and without embarrassment. When you find yourself spinning off in vir- virality for yourself, be gone, you troublemaker. I did not. Okay, I'm moving on. This approach can be slightly problematic because we don't usually distinguish between who we think we are and our ego. It's the more gentle that it comes up, the more friendliness you feel for yourself, the more dialogue is fruitful. The more this dialogue is fruitful. But to that degree, you actually are hard on yourself, then this dialogue could just increase self-criticism. Over the years, with encouragement from wonderful teachers, I have found that rather than blaming myself and yelling at myself, you can teach the Dharma to yourself. Reproach doesn't mean you have to be a negative, hold on. Reproach doesn't have to be a negative reaction to your personal brand of insanity, but it does simply apply that you see the sanity as sanity, and the neurosis as neurosis, and the spinning off as spinning off. At that point, you can teach yourself the Dharma. This advice is given me by Thrangu Rinpoche. I have anxiety attacks, he said. I could teach the Dharma to myself. Just a good, simple Dharma. Now I say, Pema, what do you really want? Do you want to shut down or close off? Do you want to stay imprisoned? Do you want to let yourself relax here? Let yourself die? Here's a chance to get. Here's your chance to actually realize something. Here's your chance to not be stuck. So what do you want? What do you really want? Do you always want to be right, or do you want to wake up? Reproach can be very powerful. You can teach yourself the Dharma in your own words. You can teach yourself the Four Noble Truths. You can teach yourself about taking refuge. Anything that has to do with the moment when you're just about to recreate samsara. As if you personally had invented it. Look ahead to rest. Look ahead to the rest of your life and ask yourself what you want to add to it. Each time you're willing to see the thoughts as empty and let them go. Come back to your breath. The seed, your seeds, you're sowing seeds of wakefulness, seeds of being able to nurture, to see the nature of the mind, and seeds of being able to rest in unconditional space. It doesn't matter that you can't do it every time. Just the willingness, the strong determination to do it, the seed, it is sowing seeds of virtue. You can find that you can do it more spontaneously, more naturally without it being an effort. It being the sense of exertion with some sense of exertion and becomes your normal state. The seeds of the bodhicitta ripening. You find who you really are. The last strength is aspiration. It's also a helpful tool. A heartfelt sense of aspiration cuts through the negativity about yourself. It cuts through the heavy tips you lay on yourself. The notion of aspiration is simply that your voice of wishes for enlightenment. You say to yourself, for yourself, about yourself, and by yourself, things like, may my compassion increase, for myself increase. You might be feeling completely hopeless, down on yourself, and with a heartfelt and you can voice your heartfelt aspiration. May my senses be obstructed. May my senses of being obstructed decrease. May my experience of wakefulness increase. May my experience my fundamental wisdom. May I experience my fundamental wisdom. May I think of others before myself. Aspiration is much like prayer, except that there's no one to hear you. Nobody who hears you. Aspiration, yet again, is like talking to yourself to be an eccentric bodhisattva. It is a way It is a way to empower yourself, and in fact, all five empower yourself. Buddhism itself is all about empowering yourself, and not about getting what you want. The five strengths of the heart instructions is how to live and how to die, whether it's right now or at the moment of your death. They tell you how to wake up whenever, whatever is going on. 14. Loving kindness and compassion. All Dharma agrees on one point. All the teachings, all the practices are about one thing. And if the way that we protect ourselves is strong, then they suffer. Then the suffering is really strong too. If ego or the cocoon starts to get lighter, then the suffering starts to get lighter too. Ego is like a really fat person trying to get through a narrow door. If there's a lot of ego, then we're always getting squeezed and poked and irritated by everything that comes along. When something comes along and doesn't quite squeeze or poke it or irritate us, we grasp to it for dear life and want it to last forever. Then we suffer more as a result of holding on to ourselves. One might think that we're talking about ego as an enemy, but about ego as the origin of sin. But this is a very different approach, a much softer approach. Rather than original sin, there's an original soft spot. The messy stuff that we see in ourselves, that we perceive in the world as violence or cruelty or fear, is not a result of some basic badness, but is the fact that we have such a tender, vulnerable, warm heart of bodhicitta, which we instinctively protect so that nothing will touch it. This is a life-affirming view. It starts from the point of a basic goodness or a basic good heart. The problem is that we continually grab the wrong end of the stick. All practices agree that there's some fundamental pattern that we have in which we're always trying to avoid unpleasant and grasp the pleasantness. There seems to be a need to change the fundamental pattern of always protecting against anything touching our soft spot. The Toklan practices are about changing the basic patterns. Earlier, I referred to the ego as being a room where you just tried to get everything on your own terms. To get out of that room, you don't drive up in a big machine and smash a hole through the thing to pieces. Rather than at your own speed, starting where you are, you begin to open the door and the windows. It's a very gentle approach. One that acknowledges that you can gradually begin to open the door. You can also shut it as often as you need, not with the desire to stay comfortable, but with the intention, ultimately, to gather the courage, more sense of humor, more basic curiosity about opening the door, until you just leave it open and invite all sentient beings as your guest, until you feel more at home with no agenda, with groundedness. The main thing about this practice and about all practices is that all Dharma agrees on one point. This one point is that you're the only one who knows what opening, and what is closing down. You're the only one who knows. The next slogan of the two witnesses, hold the principle one. Hold on, what? The next slogan of the two witnesses, hold the principle 1, is saying that one witness is everybody. Hold on. Is saying that one witness is everybody else giving you their feedback and opinion. But the principal witness is yourself. You're the only one who knows, you're the only one who's opening. And when you're closing, you're the only one who knows when you're opening and when you're closing. You're the only one who knows when you're using things to protect yourself and keep your ego together, and when you're opening and letting things fall apart. Letting the world come as it is, working with it rather than struggling against it. You're the only one who knows. There's a slogan that says, "Don't make gods into demons," which, don't make gods into demons. What it means is that you can take something good in the Toglin and the Lojin teachings, for example, and turn it into a demon. You can just use anything to close your windows and doors. You can do Toglin, as one of my students described. He said, "I do it, and I'm very careful about the control button. I breathe in just enough so that it doesn't really hurt or penetrate. I breathe out just enough to convince myself, that I'm doing the practice." But basically, nothing ever changes. He uses the Toglin just to smooth everything out and feel good. You can use the Toglin to feel like a hero. You just breathe in and out all over the place, but your motivation to be friend and to begin to penetrate those areas of yourself that you fear or reject. In fact, you hope that the practices will just bolster your sense of confidence and bolster your sense of being in the right place at the right time, having chosen the right religion. I'm on the side of the good, and all is right in the world. It doesn't help much. Maybe you've noticed that sometimes you feel like you're in a battle with reality, and reality is always winning. All of the teachings, and particularly the Lojong teachings, are encouraging us, as if we find ourselves struggling, to let it be the moment where we pause and wonder and begin to breathe in, trying to feel what's underneath the struggle, trying to find ourselves complaining. It isn't that we have to say, "Oh, I'm bad because I'm struggling." That's not a sin to complain. We're simply saying that the way to change the pattern begins to breathe in and connect with the heart and the soft spot underneath that's under all that protection. Karma is a very difficult subject because one of the reasons that we are encouraged to work with what's happening rather than to blame it on others is what's happening in some sort of karmic result of things that you have done before. This kind of teaching on karma is easily misunderstood. People get into heavy duty sins and guilt trips, feeling that they're going wrong. That means that you did something bad and that you're being punished. That's not the idea of it at all. The idea of karma is that you are continually getting teachings that you need in order to open your heart. To this degree, you don't understand it in the past, so stop protecting that soft spot. How to stop armoring your heart. You're given this gift of the teachings in the forms of your life, to give it you everything you need to learn and open further. I saw a cartoon that describes this. A head of iceberg lettuce is sitting in the garden, says, "Oh no, how did I get in the vegetable garden again? I wanted to be a wildflower." The caption reads, Oscar is born again as the head of iceberg lettuce in order to overcome the fear of being eaten. One of the one thing sorry, one can think from a bigger perspective rather than the whole notion of reward and punishment. You could see your life as an adult education course. Some of the curriculum you like, and some of them you don't like. Some of what comes up you find workable, some you don't. The curriculum for attaining enlightenment. The question is, how do you work with it? When you begin to touch your heart, you let your heart be touched. You begin to discover that it's bottomless and that it doesn't have any resolution and that this heart is huge, vast, and limitless. You begin to discover how much warmth and gentleness is there, as well as how much space. Your world seem less solid, more roomy, more spacious. The burdens lighten. In the beginning, it might feel like sadness or a shaky feeling, accompanied by a lot of fear. But your willingness to feel the fear and your willingness to feel your compassion is growing. You're willing to get to know yourself at this deep level. After a while, this same feeling begins to turn into a longing to raise the walls, a longing to be fully human and to live in your world without always having to shut down and close off when certain things come along. It begins to turn into a longing. A longing to be there for your friends when they're troubled, to be more real, to be of real help to the poor, aching planet. Curiously enough, along with this longing and sadness is this tenderness. There is an immense sense of well being, unconditional well being, which doesn't have anything to do with a pleasant or unpleasant, good, bad, hope, fear, disgrace, or fame. Something simply comes to you when you feel that you can keep your heart open. Okay, well, I don't want to end it all abruptly, so let me take a little quick pause. So um when I was around people who were basically helping me a lot with the understanding of these certain concepts, one of the things that stood out to me was, for example, I'm going to go back to chapter 4. Was it 14 or 13? I don't remember. Let me look. 13. So, looking back at 13, which is also just like another instruction guide on how to do certain things. It's so funny looking back at how far my life has taken me up until this point of being able to do these podcasts, which is something that I've always wanted to do, but I've always felt imposter syndrome. And in reading these books, I read The Science of the Mind before I read this book, and reading this book with you guys, it's very, I don't know the right words, but it's something. And the teachings, I like how it says the teachings for life and death, because when you're not scared to die, you're not scared to live. And when you're not scared to live, you're not scared to die. And I always had this way of thinking that I thought maybe it wasn't such a good thing at the time, but I always thought to myself, well, if there's a zombie apocalypse, I'm just ending it all. Because I love playing video games, and if there's no video games, what's the use, And it's not like this hopeless giving up because I think that I could survive, but at the same time, I don't know if I could survive, So, it's not really up to me. It's just how I feel at that very moment in time. But I think at this point in time, I'm like, meh. And I know a lot of people were they are very, very, very fearful of a lot of things. And I think that when you're not scared to die, you're not scared of certain things anymore. For example, I'm not scared to go up to introduce myself to people across the room, and I know people who are extremely fearful of that, and they avoid that at all costs, and they avoid speaking their mind, speaking their truth at all costs because they're so scared of the reaction that they're going to get. And it's those subtle things that I think make the most impact, or it's made the most impact on me because I know what it's like to be in those situations. Like, I know I have a lot of friends, and I myself included have had a lot of like past relationships where I was fearful of the situation that I was going to end up in being, aka like me separating from another person, because I have this happen. Like, this theme is a reoccurring theme that I see within myself and I see within other people, and a lot of my friends at this current point in time have been going through a lot of separation and a lot of things of that nature. And I was never really fearful of, splitting ways with people. So I myself have never really experienced the karmic situations when it comes to like relationships and with people in my lives, other than with my family, because like you can't get away from that karmic. Like you can't, there's no protection from that karmic, and in those cases you have to like feel what you feel. And I remember the first time that I saw the certain things that I see in my relationships, like very, very clearly, and being able to kind of forgive people for certain things, but not letting that blind me to the reality of the search of the circumstances of the situation. I was going to say both at the same time. And I think that it's it's not so much this like I think that I mistake my non-caring or not non-caring. I mistake my letting go of things for not caring. Then I think I use that word a little bit wrong. So, I think that there's also a lot of growth that I see in myself through not only like these practices, because I feel like I do these practices continuously because you're forever living your life, and it's all about whether or not you want to be going up in life, or if you don't care where you go in life and you just let the wind take you where it takes you. Like if you don't care to be awake, or if you don't care to be in that spaciousness, then you don't have to be in that spaciousness. And I myself choose to, you know put in that conscious effort that is to be more compassionate, and that is to cultivate more and more awareness, and more spaciousness, and more not knowingness, because everything that these types of teachings teach you is that there's really nothing here. And it's not that there's nothing, because obviously I'm here, I'm tangible, I'm real, my feelings are real, my situations are real, I'm real, but it doesn't have to be any deeper than that. And I think that people are searching for deeper in those situations. And I think that when you search for deeper things, you end up accumulating a lot more karma. And I think that because people are afraid of being nothing, it gets them into the situations where they are forced to play out their fears. And that's what I feel like life is. You're forced to play out your fears until you're not scared of those, and then you move up. And then it's kind of like, I think of everything as a video game because that's just the way that my brain works. But it's kind of like you start at the easiest level, and because you want to be playing the game, because you are purposefully playing the game with an intention, then you go up and you go to the next level. And because you made it past level 1, obviously level 2 is going to be more difficult. And until you beat the game, which I think is that, that person who was dying but was letting go and saying there is nothing to look for. And there was nothing to be, like it just is what it was. And with that being said, I also want to talk about, obviously the things that I talk about are very like up for interpretation because there's nothing that I can directly speak on. But the kindness, loving kindness and compassion, I think that really gets into the piece that like everybody suffers and our suffering is real. So don't make the fact that nothing is solid be an excuse to be godly awful. You know, like you all have a conscious choice to be a good person or to be a bad person, and either or they both exist in you. You both have, they both have a power within you, and you can't always be a good person, just like you can't always be a bad person. And don't look at the bad things as a bad thing, because they're not necessarily a bad thing. They're useful. Like this is one thing that I was thinking about the other day. I was thinking to myself, like, most of the people who run businesses and who have this, grand influence on their reality, aka money wise, they have to be a certain way. And in order for you to meet your reality where you want to meet reality, you have to address certain things a certain way. Like if I wanted to be this major big time CEO, I'd have to know the business lingo, I'd have to wear the fancy suits, I'd have to be that person. And sometimes it takes manipulating your reality to do that thing. And manipulation itself is not a bad thing, because that's what you're doing at every single second of the day. Every single second of the day, you make a choice, and that choice is manipulating your reality. And so I was thinking to myself, manipulation has this connotation that it's a bad thing, right? It has this connotation, or at least I have this way of thinking that if I'm manipulative, I'm a bad person. When in actuality, every single person is manipulative. Every single person. Either you're consciously manipulative or you're subconsciously manipulative. And it's about whether you're actually wakeful in that experience. Whether or not I know that I'm doing this thing, it doesn't matter, because I'm still doing this thing. It's kind of like I can sit here and be conscious that I'm breathing. And now it's a choice. Now it becomes a choice to be conscious of my breath, right? Versus me just existing and I'm just going to breathe, you know? And it's certain things that you just do. Like after you learn how to walk, now it's just a function, right? And the same could be said about manipulation, because I was thinking, like, just in life in general, how I get put in these situations where I don't know if I'm being taken advantage of or if these people are genuinely clueless. I'm trying to determine, is this person actually being wake? Is this person actually doing this out of a conscious knowing, or are they just operating out of survival instincts? Because some people, they have to manipulate their reality. They have to, like, if you have BPD, or if you have what is it called? Narcissistic personality disorder, or if you have autism, or if you have something on that spectrum, something, diagnosed, something clinically diagnosed, you don't know that you're doing those develop through your physical childhood, through your physical experience, because of the shit that you face. And so, I come to see those things and really think about those things, even though really nothing to think about there. You know what I mean? And in those situations, everybody has something. You know what I mean? Like everybody is there to the extent that they allow themselves to, and everybody experiences the things that they want. And basically, what I got out of that is that, like, you're in constant dance with this rhythm, with this energy that you call living, or this energy that you call physical life, because the dance is very real. You know what I mean? Like when I hit myself or when I stub my toe, it's very real. That pain is very real. But this is my contemplation. Does the desk know that it hurt me? Or was the desk just existing? And obviously, everything is just existing. You know what I mean? Like, and everything is just existing. So I always come back to this conclusion that, like, I'm just gonna let these things go. Manipulation of certain things is not actually a bad thing. It's just how you use those things, just like in anything in life. And the reason I bring that up, which I'm like extremely all over the place right now, but the reason that I bring that up is because the aspiration part of the practice of the 5 strengths is aspiration. What do you want to do? That's aspiration. Aspiration is like, what do you aspire to do? What do you aspire to be? Do you aspire in your waking conscious choosing? Do you choose to be uplifting to others? Or do you choose to purposefully spit in people's food, or in people's faces? Or do you choose to make a joke at at the downfall of somebody else? Or, that's so funny. My cat's teeth marks are in this book. She officially has marked her territory. But, anyways, yeah. I'm gonna sit in the space that I just created for myself by letting my ADHD distract me. And also, just another pro tip. Not necessarily a pro tip, because I don't think I consider myself a pro, but when you're going through those 5 strengths, and you're getting to the part of like recognizing your ego and like the things you've done, and the things that you have done, and the things that you continue to do, like you're a repetitive robot type of thing. Like that's how your body functions in this scientific, you know, how do I explain this? The way that science explains life as I understand it currently through the science of the mind, the book that I just read, you operate mechanically. So all of the choices that you have been making will be choices that you continue to make unless you change the cycle of choices. Like if I forever choose to go, to the store and I get the same thing, the same drink, the same exact drink every single time that I go, by the time that I'm like 50, that's going to be a natural occurring thing. It's not going to be a conscious choice at that point. I naturally always do this, so I'm going to do this again and again and again. Just like if you make a habit, right? Everything is a habit. So when you get to the point of, what's the one before aspiration? I gotta look for it. Before aspiration. Let me look. Reproach and familiarization. You're familiar with the things that you do, so try not to let that go over your head, if that makes sense. Like a lot of people, when they experience resistance or they experience their ego for like the first time ever, and they have their ego death realization, you have a tendency, and obviously because you're putting blame onto oneself, you want to, well, I don't say you want to, because I don't know that that's true for everybody, but me personally, I experienced a lot of like beating myself down because I could have been doing so much better, and why did it take me so long? And blah 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 doo. I just found myself being a very harsh critic on myself. And in those, the familiarization and the reproach and driving all blame into one, like it literally says in the book, be soft, be gentle, and feel that hurt that your ego is feeling from being crushed by the book, because that is you expanding. And I didn't really recognize that until looking back at it, because I feel like you can't really tell things from where you sit, because you're limited to your point of view. So like just allow yourself the expansion of knowing that like that's why you're here. Like you're here to learn, and you don't need to have it all figured out. And the more and more you figure it out, the better and better that you'll feel. And just feel good because you have the ability to tune into that now. Just imagine what it would be like to feel enlightenment, because you have the ability to feel that. Although you might not think that it's true because of the critic, and we all have the critic. But anyways, I just went on a rant, so I'll end this here. I hope that this was helpful in any way, shape, and form. And as always, my babies, thanks for tuning in and tapping in. If there was no you, there would be no me. If there was no me, there would be no you. So know that I love you and I appreciate you for being here. And tomorrow we'll get into, I believe 16, 15, 15 and 16. Let me look. Yeah, 15 and 16. So yeah, thanks for tuning in and tapping in, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.